They will become the witnesses to your reality as you were created witness to God's. Yet when the sonship comes together and accepts its oneness, it will be known by its creations, who witness to its reality as the Son does to the Father. Here we see an integration of the metaphysical oneness of heaven with its reflection in the world. The oneness of God, Christ, and His creations, the atemporal, non-spatial extension of love, is reflected in the illusion as we learn to see our brothers and ourselves sharing the same interest of awakening from the ego's horrific world that witnessed to our guilt and fear. Miracles have no place in eternity because they are reparative. Yet while you still need healing, your miracles are the only witnesses to your reality that you can recognize. You cannot perform a miracle for yourself because miracles are a way of giving acceptance and receiving it. This is a course in miracles because they correct the ego's thought system of one or the other. Miracles witness to the oneness of the sonship, and their power to correct, i.e. forgiveness, cannot be for us and not for everyone. We learn that the atonement principle is true. The separation from God and the fragmentation of His Son never happened, and are united in the ego's guilt as we are one in the Holy Spirit's miracle of correction. God's meaning is incomplete without you, and you are incomplete without your creations. Accept your brother in this world and accept nothing else, for in him you will find your creations because he created them with you. You will never know that you are co-creator with God until you learn that your brother is co-creator with you. Again, Jesus brings together the metaphysical and practical levels of this course, of His course. We remember our function in heaven, Spirit creating in the likeness of God, by learning to undo the barriers of separation we placed between ourselves and that remembrance. These unforgivenesses are undone by systematically day in and day out in all of our relationships, correcting the misperception that our interests are separate from those of others. As our symphony develops, we shall see this idea expressed as a formula. We see the face of Christ in our brother and remember God. To see the face of Christ in another, a theme we have not yet discussed, is to see the innocence behind the sin, the light shining through the darkness of guilt. We see this face in another because we see it in ourselves. Projection or extension makes perception. Undoing the ego's thought system, predicated on division and differences, enables us to see another's purpose as our own. When the ego is undone, all that remains is the Holy Spirit's presence, the memory of God and His love that rises unimpeded in our minds. It was always there, but we had covered it with layers of separation and specialness that have no power to destroy the truth of creation. We see in these passages how A Course in Miracles aims at helping us remember our identity, combining its lofty vision of the oneness of creation with specific guidelines for living here. This leads us specifically to the Holy Spirit's plan of forgiveness. We turn first to the correction of error, another important section that addresses the problem everyone faces. How to be in the presence of what are obvious mistakes whether it is dropping bombs on innocent people, watching one's children make hurtful choices, or grade school teachers seeing their pupils' mistakes in arithmetic. In other words, Jesus answers the question of how we right-mindedly correct error, contrasting it with the ego's wrong-minded approach of projection and attack. To the ego, it is kind and right and good to point out errors and correct them. This makes perfect sense to the ego, which is unaware of what errors are and what correction is. Errors are of the ego, and correction of errors lies in the relinquishment of the ego. The truth is that we revel in finding error and cannot wait for someone to cross our lines in the sand. The last sentence is important. Errors are of the ego, and the correction of errors lies in the relinquishment of the ego. We all make errors here, doing wrong or silly things. Yet before we can correct another's mistake first, we must let go of the ego. Let me repeat that Yet before we can correct another's mistake, we first must let go of the ego. If we do not, the ego, which is always on the make, will leap into the errors of others and seek to punish them. Following its hate-filled guidance, we accentuate the differences between ourselves and others. They are the sinners who deserve to be punished, while we remain sinless children of God. We might even take on the role of unhealed healer and practice forgiveness to destroy, where we still see sin. But rather than accusing the sinners, affirm instead that they deserve to be loved. But they remain miserable sinners. This perception is inevitable when we identify with the ego's thought system of separation and judgment, because the principle of projection makes perception, demands that we see our sin in another. In the holy instant, however, where the ego is gone, we practice the Holy Spirit's forgiveness and let its love extend through us to embrace the world. And I'm going to pick up there tomorrow. Thank you.